Data ownership and management. During our previous lesson, that is Lesson 10, Code of Ethics for Cybersecurity Professional, one of the Code of Ethics requires all cybersecurity professionals to acknowledge and observe the chain of command in terms of granting access to information and data. And if you can recall, I did state that having in-depth knowledge about data ownership and management is very crucial to enforcing and observing the code of chain of command in terms of granting access to information and data. The following are the lesson objectives. The first objective of this lesson is to differentiate between data ownership and data management. The next is identifying the models of data ownership and as well as the models of data management. And under data management, we will take a detailed look at data privacy, data loss prevention, data policies, information classification, and lastly, data security controls. With the lesson objectives outlined, let's begin with the first objective, that is differentiating between data ownership and data management through its definition. Data ownership is defined as the act of having legal right and complete control over a single piece or a set of data elements. In other words, data ownership is the rightful ownership of data assets and its acquisition, its use, and its distribution by its owner. While data management is the practice of collecting, keeping, and using data securely, efficiently, and cost-effectively. With the differences between data ownership and management outlined, let us take a detailed look at the models of data ownership. There are three main models of data ownership. The first being a data owner, which includes a president of an organization, a chief executive officer, or a department head. People occupying these roles are liable for negligence provided they fail to show due diligence with respect to enforcing data security policies and protecting sensitive data. It's important to note that a data owner decides the type of data access classification he or she belongs to and can modify his data access classification. Data steward is the second model of data ownership. An example of a data steward is a senior level employee of an organization who oversees the life cycle of one or more sets of institutional data. Data stewards are mandated to handle the implementation of high-level policies set by the data owner. Data custodian is the last type of data ownership. A data custodian is an executive of an organization entrusted with the responsibilities of data administration, such as data protection and safeguarding. The main primary responsibilities of data custodian is the protection, securing, maintaining, and the management of data. Examples of data custodians are IT staffers. With this detailed explanation of the various models of data ownership, you as a cybersecurity professional can easily categorize and form a chain of command in terms of access to data. With the models of data ownership explained, let us take a detailed look at data management. Data management. Earlier, I defined data management as the practice of collecting, keeping, and using data securely, efficiently, and cost-effectively. In this segment, we will be identifying some data management mechanisms used in collecting, keeping, securing data, and as well as used in making data efficiently and cost-effectively. Let's begin with the following data management control mechanism, that is data protective and data integrity assurance. One control mechanism to have in place for the data management is data privacy, which is defined as the act of governing how data is collected, shared, used, and accessed. A data privacy control does not only provide cyber data with privacy, it also preserves the integrity of the data and as well as protect data from unauthorized individuals. A perfect form of a data privacy control is the GAP principle, which stands for Generally Accepted Privacy Principles. The GAP principle is a privacy policy framework developed by 4 renowned cyber chartered and certified institutions in the world, which are the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, the Institute of Internal Auditors, Canadian Institute of Chartered Accountants, and the Information System Audit and Control Association, ISACA. The following are the 10 main gap principles. The first principle is management. The management principle states that an organization handling private information should have policies, procedures, and governance structure in place to protect the privacy of that information. The management principle requires all organizations handling private information to have policies, procedures, and governance structure in place to protect the privacy of such information. Organizations like hospitals, social media platforms, and personal service providing companies are expected to have procedures, policies, and governance structure in place to protect the privacy of its clients' information. The second principle is the notice principle, which states that anyone who happens to be a subject of a record being maintained by an organization should receive a notice of that fact, and as well as to have access to the privacy policies and procedures followed by that organization. One practical and implementation of the notice principle is the terms and conditions provided to you when signing up for any of the social media platforms. The third principle is the choice of content principle. The choice of content principle states that an organization should inform its data subjects of all their options regarding the data that they own and must obtain consent from those individuals for the collection, storage, use, and sharing of their personal information. The choice of content principle must always be featured in the user terms and conditions contract form. On this note, let me state that all cybersecurity professionals are required to know how to write a user terms and conditions contract form, which we'll be covering extensively in Module 2. The fourth gap principle is the collection principle, which states that organizations should only collect personal information for the intended purposes disclosed in their privacy notice. In other words, organizations and companies ought to only gather digital information they have clearly stated in their terms and conditions notice form. The use, retention, and the disposal of digital information is the fifth gap principle. This principle dictates that all gathered digital information should strictly be used for its intended gathered purposes and not for any other undisclosed purposes. In addition to this stated principle, this same fifth principle also requires organizations to securely dispose of gathered digital information or data as soon as there is no more use for its intended purposes for gathering. So, based on the fifth gap principle, you can sue an organization who, upon gathering your digital information based on a disclosed purpose to you, decides to use your gathered digital information for undisclosed purposes, or either decides to keep your digital gathered information for undisclosed purposes rather than disposing of your gathered digital information securely. Access is the sixth gap principle, and it states that organizations should provide data subjects with the ability to review, edit, or update their personal information. So, it's based on the access gap principle that you are allowed to edit or update your personal information with any organizations and even across all social media platforms. The seventh gap principle is the disclosure to third-party principle. This principle states that organizations should only share gathered digital information with third parties only if the sharing of the gathered digital information is consistent with the purpose disclosed in the privacy notice, in addition with the consent of the individual or subject whose gathered digital information is being shared with the third party. So, based on the disclosure to third party principle, you have the right to sue any organization, especially internet service providers and social media platforms, who shares your gathered digital information with third parties without stating it in their privacy notice and without your consent. The security principle is the eighth gap principle, and it states that all organizations must secure all gathered digital private information against any unauthorized access. So, based on this principle, if your gathered digital private information get leaked or sold online, you have the absolute right to sue the organization whom you entrusted your digital information with, since it is their core mandate to secure your digital private information. On this note, I highly recommend you to only allow and trust organizations who have the ability and does not have any bad record of allowing their clients' information to be leaked online. Data quality principle is the ninth gap principle. This principle states that all organizations should take reasonable steps to ensure that all gathered digital information they maintain is accurate, complete, and relevant to their purpose of gathering. So, for this reason, organizations gathering personal information cannot be held accountable for any inaccurate digital gathered personal information. That is, if the information provider decides to rather provide inaccurate information about him or herself. It is often based on this principle that some organizations and other government agencies often sue people who decide to provide them with inaccurate personal information. Last of the GAP principle is the monitoring and enforcement principle. This GAP principle states that all organizations should have a program in place to monitor compliance in terms of privacy policy and as well as to provide dispute resolution mechanism. In a simple term, what this monitoring and enforcement principle means is that all organizations gathering digital information ought to monitor and enforce the GAP principles and as well as any other data privacy compliance or policies. With the knowledge and the observance of all the GAP principles, all the data management control mechanism, that is, data protection, data integrity assurance, and data privacy, will all be absolute in terms of their enforcement. With the knowledge of these GAP principles, you as a cybersecurity professional and a data custodian wouldn't have any data privacy related issues. Back to the control mechanism for data management in terms of data protection and data integrity assurance. The second data management control mechanism is data policies in terms of data storage wiping, its disposal, its retention, its encryption, its access classification, and data storage policies. It's worth mentioning that digital data is the most expensive resources in the cyberspace. So having a robust policies in terms of its disposal, its retention, storage, and its wiping is very important. Not having these policies in place is equivalent to placing your server or your network in a free internet cafe for both free and easy access by all. So for the purpose of safeguarding data, which happens to be the most valuable resources in the cyberspace, let us take a detailed look at some of the best data policies in wiping, disposing, retention, and storage of data. Let's begin with data wiping policies. Data storage wiping can also be referred to as data erasing or data clearing. Data storage wiping is a method of overwriting the data that aims to completely destroy all electronic data residing on the hard drive or any other digital media by using zeros and ones to overwrite data onto all sectors of the device with a software. It is important to note that there are advanced recovery tools that can be used to recover all data wiped from a data storage device. For this reason, I advise you to wipe off the data storage device at least 7 times in order to make the recovery of wiped data on a storage device impossible or difficult. A wiped data on a storage device can be recovered because the act of wiping off data on a storage device aims to erase the link of the deleted file or data to the hidden protected area of the storage device. For those who may not know, the hidden protected area of a hard drive or a storage device is the part of the hard drive that is often not easily accessed after formatting the hard drive of the storage device for the first time. So it's due to the hidden protected area on the storage device like a hard drive. That is why your 500GB storage device may be labeled 480GB after formatting your hard drive for the first time. For those who may be wondering if there is a way to recover a hidden protected area of a storage device, yes, there is a way, which I will cover extensively with a practical demonstration of how to retrieve a hidden protected area of a storage device in Model 3, which is cyber intelligence. The following is a table of my recommended data wiping tools with their pros and cons. Though I have used all 5 wiping tools, I highly recommend the ASUS Partition Master data wiping tool. As you read through the table of my recommended wiping tools, let me take this opportunity to tell you about a cyber forensic investigation I did for a company, which at the end I discovered that it was due to an absence of a data storage wiping policy. The said cyber forensic investigation that I conducted was in May 2018, which was about a cyber espionage, with the company's primary suspect being a former networking administrator. In order to summarize this said cyber forensic investigation, which lasted for almost 10 weeks, I will only tell you about the findings of the cyber investigation. Well, at the end of my forensic investigation, I discovered that the said primary suspect, which was a former employee, had nothing to do with the suspected cyber espionage. But due to the absence of a data storage device wiping policy, a then IT intern who was still working in the company as at the time that I was conducting the investigation decided to just format a replace hard drive which was running very slow and as a result got replaced. After formatting this marked slow hard drive, this intern proceeded to sell it online. Unfortunately for the intern, the buyer was an IT student who bought this used hard drive for a forensic purpose. And during his forensic exploration, he discovered a lot of sensitive data on this said hard drive. Though the guy was tracked down and cautioned, if there was a data storage device wiping policy in place, this company wouldn't have falsely accused an innocent former employee, and as well as spend that huge sum of money they paid me with. Data disposing policy is another data management policy which also contributes to data protection and data integrity assurance. A data disposing policy is defined as a policy framework which provides a proper procedure in cleaning and destruction of sensitive or confidential data on all cyber systems and electronic media storage devices being disposed, recycled, or being transferred as either a surplus property or as a reusable device. Because data storage devices is the main hub of keeping both sensitive and non-sensitive data, the methods of disposing of data storage media and devices is of utmost importance. And for this reason, let us identify the best and the most recommended methods of disposing of any type of data storage media or data storage device. The drilling and crashing of data storage devices to a state of point beyond repairs is one of the best recommended methods to dispose of a data storage media device like a pen drive, a solid-state drive, a hard drive, a diskette, and a compact disc. This is because it is impossible to conduct a cyber reverse engineering for a forensic data acquisition on a properly random drilled and crashed a data storage media device like a pen drive, a hard drive, a solid-state drive, a diskette, and a compact disc. Another recommended way to dispose of a data storage device like a hard drive storage media device is through degassing, which is the process of decreasing or eliminating the remnant magnetic field in a hard drive. Due to the effectiveness of degassing hard drives, degassing of hard drives have been the preferred method for erasing of data on a hard drive by many for decades now. It is important to note that degassing doesn't work on solid-state drives since data is not stored magnetically on a SSD. Another secure way to dispose of digital data on digital data storage media like mobile phones and tablets is by either burning or damaging the mobile phone's motherboard beyond repairs. This is because all mobile devices that has the ability to store data internally always have an internal memory embedded on its motherboard. So, not damaging the motherboard of a mobile device beyond repairs may still cost you, since data stored in an internal memory of a repairable mobile device can be retrieved by a cyber forensic professional like me. Caution: never issue out any of your mobile device that may contain any sensitive information to a relative or a friend, even if you should factory reset it, flash or format it. This is because data flashed or formatted on a mobile device can be restored for retrieval. For this reason, never issue out your mobile device that may contain any sensitive information. Rather, damage it beyond repairs. Another caution is to always insist that your faulty mobile device must be repaired in your presence, and never leave your faulty mobile device to be repaired in your absence, since out of curiosity, most technicians are fond of glancing through or copying data from their clients' mobile devices after they are done repairing it. For those who often save your data on cloud storage, I urge you to never save your sensitive data on a cloud storage, since you have no absolute control over data stored in the cloud. Also, be reminded that data stored in the cloud storage can be compromised or hacked. For this reason, I recommend you to always store your sensitive information on data storage media like pen drives, compact discs, solid-state drives, memory cards, papers, and a hard drive, since you have absolute control over such data media storage devices. Last on the list of recommended methods of disposing of data storage media is electronic shredding and burning of data storage media like compact discs, diskettes, pen drives, and papers containing sensitive information. But just shredding and only burning papers containing sensitive information is not recommended. This is because an excellent cyber reverse engineer like me can perform an advanced cyber reverse engineering on the just shredded or bent paper and retrieve any sensitive information that was shredded or bent off. So, for this reason, I highly recommend you to always shred and then bend compact discs, diskettes, pen drives, and papers containing sensitive information into ashes. This is because all mobile devices that has the ability to store data internally always have an internal memory embedded on its motherboard. So, not damaging the motherboard of a mobile device beyond repairs may still cost you, since data stored in an internal memory of a repairable mobile device can be retrieved by a cyber forensic professional like me. It's important to note that microwaving a hard drive in order to dispose of data on it is not a best practice. Back again to the data policy in terms of wiping of data, disposing of data, retention of data, storage of data, encryption, and classification of data. The third must-have data policy for data protection and data integrity assurance is data retention. A data retention policy is a policy framework that instructs the proper way to dispose of data, the type of data to dispose of, and the type of storage media to keep, issue out, or dispose of. A data retention policy provides guidelines on how a data or a data storage media should be disposed of based on the consideration of the classification of data on a data storage media. The fourth must-have data policy in order to enforce data protection and data integrity assurance is data encryption, which is the process of encoding information. In other words, data encryption is the process of converting an original representation of an information into an alternative form known as ciphertext. There are many forms and methods of encryption of digital data, but since I will be covering encryption into details in Model 4 as one of the cybersecurity controls, I will not discuss into details encryption in Model 1. The fifth recommended data policy for data management is a data storage policy. A data storage policy is a policy framework that dictates the type of data to be stored, the type of data media storage to be used, how a data should be stored, and how long a data should be stored before it is disposed of. Having a robust data storage policy in place contributes greatly to data protection enforcement and data integrity assurance. Classification of data is the last must-have data management policy in terms of wiping of data, disposing of data, retention of data, storage of data, and encryption of data. A data classification policy contributes greatly to both data protection and data integrity assurance in terms of data accessibility. In a general term, data classification is defined as a process of organizing data into categories in order to make it easier for retrieval, sorting, storing, and accessing of data. But in the context of information security, a data classification policy is a policy framework which dictates and directs the classification and the accessing of data on the basis of data sensitivity. In other words, a data classification policy describes the accessibility of data on the basis of an authentication security clearance. The classification of data often varies depending on the institution. For instance, in a civilian institution, data is classified as the following: confidential, private, sensitive, and public. Whilst in a security institution like the military, data is classified as top secret, secret, confidential, sensitive but classified, and unclassified. Though the classification of data varies depending on the institution it finds itself, it is important to note that it serves the same purpose, that is, enforcement of data protection and data integrity assurance. Because data classification is a form of cybersecurity control, I will not explain into details, since we'll be covering into details the various forms of data classification in both in a civilian setup and in a security setup in Model 4 when learning about the various cybersecurity controls. This brings to an end the various data management mechanisms. But the following are some trial questions based on all that we've covered so far in Model 1. I urge you to try answering them based on all that we've covered. Sorry to disappoint those who are more enthused in practical lab sessions, since there was no practical session in Model 1, which is because Model 1 is more of principles and explanatory topics. But as the course proceeds, we will be having more practical sessions in penetration testing, software reverse engineering, networking, cyber forensics, and a catch the flag competition in a real-time lab session. Stay tuned for Module 2, which is Cybersecurity Policy Frameworks and its compliance. In Module 2, I'll be guiding you on how to draft your own effective and customized cybersecurity policy framework and a compliance for an institution or for your personal use. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at CDR_Ayam and on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn at CDR_Ayam. This is the end of Module 1 of Militarized Master Cybersecurity class with Commander Ayam. Till we meet again, stay safe.